I can hear him banging. He's trying to get in.
He's getting close to the door. I'm going to go ahead and get the gun out. It's a shotgun. It's large.
Late one night as I came home and saw the front door broken in, I grabbed my piece and went inside to see who lurks within.
Hi, you're listening to Reach Out America Radio, sponsored by World Integrity News Network. The show tonight is Imploding the Illusion, and I'm your host, Raquel Okiai. Welcome to the program. We have two interesting topics we're going to be talking about tonight. First, we're going to give you a follow-up on the Twin Peaks shootout in Waco, Texas. That occurred on May 12th. 9 people were left dead, 18 were injured. I have an attorney who is representing at least 2 of the accused people in that shootout. His name is Bob Gill, so he'll be our first guest. After that, and Bob, you're welcome to stay on with us and discuss it as well. I'm going to be providing a follow-up on the arrest and death of Sandra Bland. That's a 28-year-old black woman who was pulled over by Texas State Police on July 10th. 3 days later, she was arrested for or charged with assault of a public servant, and she was found dead 3 days later. Big story in the news, and I think most of you know about it. So we were talking about it last week or last Friday. Was a very, very interesting conversation. So what I wanted to do was go over all of the things that sort of happened the past week, and kind of bring you up to date. So I have several guests coming on for that, similar to the same ones I had last week. Efrain Gonzalez, Rodney Jackson, Roth and Ted Taupier, who will be on to talk about that. And they may also have some questions about the Twin Peaks shooting. Bob, are you on already?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much for calling in and coming on such short notice. I know we just talked today. Thanks so much. I read about you. I read a couple of stories with your name on it, so I decided to give you a call and see if you want to come on. Could you go ahead and just tell us what's going on there? Who are you representing? Where is the case at now? And I would also like your impression about people on the ground. What are the people saying about all of this? Or are they just going along with the police story, or are they trying to figure out the truth?
Well, I think there's a big search for the truth going on. A lot of people are very skeptical. What is going on in Waco? There are a couple of big factors here. The large number of people that have been charged, and some of the charges that have been pressed against them, and some of the other actions that have been taken against them. People are very curious about this thing, especially lawyers in the state of Texas.
Because there's so many, what are the biggest issues then? Why are so many lawyers interested?
Because of the way the case is being handled by the McLennan County District Attorney's Office. There's a big veil of secrecy over the proceedings. The discovery is very slow and forthcoming. They filed a lot of forfeiture actions trying to take these guys' motorcycles away, and there just really has not been the search for truth that we had hoped there would be at this stage of the proceedings.
Do you think you're ever going to get the truth?
I think it's going to be slow coming. I think we'll get to the truth in most of the cases, but it's so far it's been very slow going, and I expect it to be slow going from here on out, just because of the sheer volume of cases and the sheer volume of evidence that they're facing.
Are there still a lot of them in jail? I guess there was originally 130-something people arrested.
Yeah, I think it was even higher than that. But my information is there are very few of them left in jail. Most of them have posted very high bail bonds and gotten out on bond. A lot of them are subject to GPS monitoring, all kinds of curtailments of their liberties at this point.
What kind of evidence does the state have?
I do not know. I've heard a lot of speculation about what they may have. I know there's been a lot of talk about some video recordings That's something that we're going to have to be spending some time with as we go forward. But I don't know what they're doing with the video recording at this point, and I have not seen any evidence lists. We're really in the dark on this thing so far. Just speculating on what we might see in a normal type of criminal case under similar circumstances. There are going to be some evidence lists. There'll be some evidence confiscated, witness statements. There are going to be some video recordings, and we really haven't seen any of that at this point.
Would that be routine? I mean, how long do you have to wait to get that kind of discovery?
Well, the statute in the state of Texas is kind of open-ended. It reads that the state has to furnish discovery as soon as it's practicable, and in most counties that would have been practicable by now. Some of that should have been released by this point. I mean, certainly there's some things that they may still be working on, but some of the evidence should have been released by now. Certainly there are reports, there are evidence lists and things that could have been turned over to the defense, but they haven't been to date. I understand some of that may be forthcoming in the next couple of weeks, but it's we're talking about an offense that occurred in the middle of May, and we're still waiting.
Do you have any pretrial hearings coming up, or are you in the dark with that too?
I do not have any pretrial hearings scheduled. I do not know of any of the individuals that have been charged that have been indicted yet by a grand jury. I think we're all still at the pre-indictment stage, and once people start getting indicted, then we'll start. There'll be more court action at that point.
So we have a group of people now that they haven't even been indicted yet. Yet they have ankle bracelets, or they're still in jail if they didn't have enough money to bail out, and they have all these restrictions on them. It surely doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And it really doesn't make a lot of sense when you think that if there are 170 people involved in this thing, there are going to be a lot of varying degrees of guilt, even if some of the people are in fact guilty. And I'm not saying that anyone is guilty of anything at this point. I'm just speculating. But there are going to be some, as we have in any situation like this, there are going to be some major participants and some minor participants. And so far, each and every one of them have been subject to the same type of bond restrictions. They were all given the same bond amount starting off with, no matter what their involvement might have been. They were all subject to GPS monitoring, no matter what their involvement might have been. I have one client who I'm not going to name either of my clients at this point, but I have one who, so far, the evidence that I have seen, which is really only a forfeiture petition, indicates that he was merely present.
Indicates that he was just present. That's it.
It appears that he was merely present at the scene of this offense. Yet his bond amount was $1 million. I got it reduced much lower than that, but it's still a very high bond amount, and he's subject to GPS monitoring. They know where he is 24 hours a day. He has travel restrictions. He's had a hard time getting a job, and he's to the point where he may not be able to afford that ankle monitor anymore. And as part of his bond conditions, that he comply with the terms of the GPS monitor, which is, of course, paying them this ungodly monthly fee. So if he runs out of money and can't pay that fee anymore, he is in violation of his bond conditions and subject to being packed up and put back in the McLennan County Jail.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I'm questioning if they're ever going to be able to make a case on this guy.
On your guy and probably plenty of others. I'm really concerned about the people in jail who just don't have any money. I mean, do they have court-appointed attorneys assigned, or are they able to? I mean, there's still several sitting in jail, not being able to post a bond. We're talking about May, June, July, 2 months in jail on a, merely present.
Yeah, and I don't know what the story is. I don't know how many are left from jail, and I don't know, anything about their cases. So that would be speculation on my part. But given the sheer numbers of people that were arrested, odds are there could be some people left in jail who just didn't really have much at all, if anything at all, to do with what went on there. a lot of guys rode motorcycles there. A lot of guys showed up, and it looks like a relatively small number may have participated in the goings-on.
The national news seems to take they're telling the story that the police department is telling. I just feel like at any piece of media that I'm reading or taking a look at, from May 12th to now, it has this edge of, we know what we're doing. These are criminals. We'll deal with it. Everyone will have a fair shake at the end of the day, I suppose, in court. But we don't, they're not discussing or going over the points, the unconstitutionality of it all. How come nobody talks about the Constitution anymore?
Well, I'm here to talk about the Constitution. I'm certainly interested in that
Good.
document.
Thank you.
In the police
I figured you would be, Bob. Yeah.
Not read it. The police department, of course they're going to bluster and say, well, we have everything under control and all these guys are guilty, and, the elected officials are out in front of this thing all talking their piece also. But let's see where the rubber meets the road and what actually, let's look a year down the road and see what actually happens with these cases.
Bob, this is Ted. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. Bob, this is Ted Taupier. I'm from Connecticut. I'm in an extremely similar situation. I don't have one ankle bracelet. I have two, and it's all run by this group called the Sentinel Group. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, they gave me both my bracelets free of charge, so the state is paying for them. So this is basically a racket for the state to basically strap these people with a GPS monitoring, make them pay, I think it's like $10 or $12 a day for rental of these units and paying for the services. And then basically nobody's been charged or nobody's guilty of anything. It blows my mind that, one, the liberty can be taken away from you, and two, you have to actually pay for the liberty to be taken away from you. Otherwise, you get to go back to jail. Like, this is the most insane situation I've ever heard of. And the people I know that you're representing, you don't want to name them, but I believe there was a husband and wife that was in the parking lot, and they may have had some kind of a motorcycle club, sort of jersey on or shirt on or vest on, and these people were taken into custody with absolutely no rules of evidence. Like, if you're in a parking lot and you just showed up and somebody interviewed you, a police officer interviewed you and said, what are you doing here? Well, we just came to get breakfast. How is that a crime? How can the law department in the police department, in the DEA or FBI or whoever the hell was running this thing show up and take your liberties away? And how come America hasn't just flipped out on this? This is just asinine. I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know the facts of that particular case. Certainly, right. If everything you said was true and there was nothing more, there would be absolutely a gross violation of someone's civil rights. I mean, the state of Texas is looking at a huge federal lawsuit. I mean, we're not talking like, $5 or $10 million. We're talking $30, $40, $50 million per person times 100 people. Do they understand what has to happen? Because this isn't going to go away, right? I mean, if this guy loses his job, it's certainly not going away. People are paying close attention to this, and when the time comes, I'm sure there will be some federal lawsuits. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's happening at this point. We just don't know. For my individual clients, I just don't know what the basis of their lawsuit is right now, because I don't know what if anything the state has against them. Against them, right? It's preliminary for me at this point. And there's been no disclosure of evidence, obviously, right? I mean, that's what I heard. That is correct. Yeah.
Can I be heard? Raquel, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Who's this?
This is Rodney.
Hey, Rodney.
Oh, hey, Rodney. Rodney is a former law enforcement officer, also a disabled veteran. He also is a consultant to the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Thanks for calling in, Rodney.
Okay. I guess I'm with the gentleman that just got done speaking. I guess I have a real problem with the idea that anyone has been arrested without reasonable cause. it can't happen.
Well, it does every day.
I see that from what the lawyer is telling me, but I guess my problem that I have is it legally it can't happen. So I'm with you. I'm surprised that I'm not a lawyer, but how are you going to hold my client if you don't have a charge?
Well, they all have been charged. But
with what?
With I don't know, whatever he's been charged and put in jail. They all have $1 million bond on them.
Okay, so but there's no evidence.
You've been charged.
No, it doesn't work that way. You can say that pick any charge. I mean, if you can't substantiate.
Disturbing
the
peace.
The original charge was a conspiracy to commit criminal activity. I think that's what I had seen online or I read somewhere.
Yeah. Bob, can you talk about what they've been charged?
The actual charge in most of these, if not all of these people were charged with, it's called engaging in organized criminal activity.
Yeah.
And
so
the way I have all this took place, a bunch of people were arrested. The law enforcement officers swore out a kind of a blanket, probable.
It's online. You can read
alleging the same offense against everyone, and a judge signed off on those and found probable cause to hold these people, based upon what I understand to be generic, one-size-fits-all probable cause arrest affidavit.
Yeah, it's like a pocket warrant where they go in, they generically identify the criminality case of what's happening, and then they leave it blank. You write in the person's name, then the judge signs it, or whatever, the justice of the peace signed it. It's online. You can download it. The template has been put out there. It's a blank template. And basically they just went and they just wrote it up and they wrote names in it and somebody just signed it without any evidence of anything.
Okay. So
the evidence was a sworn affidavit from a peace officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that sworn affidavit was
that's what the law requires.
Right. Was a template too.
Okay.
The sworn affidavit was a template and the arrest warrant was a template.
Okay. So let's consider this a John Doe. So John Doe arrives at 9 p.m. and you got him on camera the entire time that he's there, from 9 to whenever this event happened. And just say it ended at 9:45 p.m. Right. So the camera has him the entire time on camera. So they're going to prosecute him under this engaging in criminal activity, even though the camera has watched him the entire 45 minutes sitting drinking a beer.
Correct.
That's insane.
Well, that's America. Welcome to America.
If that's all true, that would be insane. But I don't know that there's any camera that has anybody on it for 45 minutes or any other period of time, just sitting there doing nothing. We don't know what the camera shows. Right.
We haven't been allowed to see it, and the public hasn't been allowed to see it.
No one has seen it yet, except law enforcement. So
isn't there also, Bob?
We don't know what the evidence shows at this point.
And we also don't have any of the evidence of the 9 people that were shot and killed and how they were shot and how they were killed, and if any of that evidence is actually on video.
That's true.
And isn't that a little bit abnormal? I mean, usually when, the news covering cases and they give you their name, their picture, et cetera, we don't even know it's out there, the 9 people that were killed, but nothing about how they were killed exactly. I mean, where is the coroner's reports? Where is...
Right.
Yeah. It
Where's
just doesn't
the Michael
exist?
Brown grand jury report, evidentiary reports? Where's all that?
Same idea, right.
Right.
We don't get to have it.
Sorry, do we even know who the officers were that were involved in this? Was it local? Was it federal? Who was it? Do we know?
I don't know for sure who it was. I speculate that it was the Waco Police Department and possibly officers of the McLennan County Sheriff's Department. There may have been some task force officers. We just don't know who all the officers were that were there.
Wow.
I'm kind of assuming there were some in the area before it all happened.
All right, and nobody's produced reports. There's no
Correct.
police reports available for anyone to review about the circumstances of the evidence of what happened.
Right. Not at this point, there aren't.
Oh, my God.
And Bob, is it all, Mr. Gill, is it also true that the judge put a gag order on the video recordings of, I think there was a place across the street that has some video cam. The Twin Peaks restaurant also had a video cam. I understand that that's under a court-ordered gag order. No one can see it but the police.
Well, I don't know about if the video was shut down. I know that some of the lawyers involved had a gag order issued against them.
What? For what? What was the purpose of that? To hide evidence?
To order them to not speak in the media about the case. That was the purpose of it.
Is that, like, how unusual is that for a Texas judge to do that? How, in a criminal case, Mr. Gill,
it's unusual, but it's not unheard of.
It's not unheard of, but it's just very unusual, and it reeks of people trying to cover up for the misgivings of lawmen who broke the law and violate the law. I mean, look at Ruby Ridge. Nothing was produced.
It's kind of a heavy-handed response from a judge who thinks that ultimately he's going to be able to try these cases in McLennan County.
Yeah, because
they don't want to suffer the added expense of having to take these cases for trial all over the state of Texas.
And they know that this is going to cause a real serious headache because probably a lot of these, and I'll say 80-90% of these cases, don't have any evidence that anyone did anything of any kind of wrongdoing.
That's correct.
And so when you look at
we just don't know what the cases show right now.
Right. No, but I can look at some of the photographs that came out of it, and there wasn't. I mean, the guys when they were being, I guess I'll say, locked down, they just looked like regular people sitting there on their motorcycles. They didn't have guns. They weren't on the ground. They weren't spread eagle. None of that showed up. They were all just sitting around on their bikes before they were arrested. So if there's a gun battle, first of all, you're not going to have 100 guys standing around just looking at each other. You're going to have guys gone, whether they're running or diving under cars or getting out of there. They're not going to stick around. So there's something not right about the video in the photographs I've seen just in the news media. Right? I mean, when gunfire in an active shooter situation goes off, what do people do? They don't just stand around.
Yeah, they take off. That's what I think.
Well,
they're gone.
They take off the ground.
Or they hit the ground.
Right. They either hit the ground or they're gone.
But I'm a little puzzled. How are law enforcement officers going to testify to engaging in criminal activity when they arrived after the fact? There's nothing they can testify to. They arrived after the fact.
Correct. That's a great question. And I, if I was a judge sitting on top of this mountain of BS, I'll call it, I'd be worried, about my own career because this is not going to go well for him.
Right.
And if he doesn't get through these cases quickly, I mean, there's going to be public backlash and outcrying of just to throw that judge away.
Things like the gag order.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, these judges have to get reelected, right? I mean, I don't know what the purpose in Texas is, whether they're appointed or reelected, but I mean, if I was a judge in that community, I'd be scared crap out of my career and what this is going to do to my career.
Judges, district attorneys, and sheriffs are all elected in the state of Texas.
Oh, God. So, I mean, what is this going to do? I mean, that's why they want to block the news, too. They don't want any of this getting out there before the election, I'm sure. Because if sheriffs are not getting elected and all these people are going to start going, well, we need to have honest people run against them. Some of these folks will be up for election in 2016. There aren't any elections between now and 2016 for any of these offices. So that's the earliest anybody will be up for election.
Yeah. But they've got a little powder keg they're sitting on down there because they've got all these cases and they're all budget busters. They're all clog the courts.
How are they going to be able to fund? How can the prosecutor handle this many cases? There's not that many prosecutors down in that small little town, is there?
No, there certainly aren't enough prosecutors to handle this at this point, and so I think that office has been struggling. That's one of the reasons that things have been slow and forthcoming, is the office is stretched to the limits.
Now, is there any way for a group of people that were wrongfully detained, wrongfully arrested, wrongfully, their liberties taken away, to get together, fund a decent law office, and go file something in federal court? I mean, this is crazy. I think that's what needs to happen.
Well, I think people are probably thinking about that, but it's premature at this point until more formal charges have been brought. Yeah,
I guess, but it's almost a violation of civil rights. They have no evidence.
Absolutely, I think it's a violation of civil rights.
We don't know if they have any evidence or not. That's the thing. We keep saying that they don't have.
I don't think
evidence.
they have much. I don't think they can. It's very difficult to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that they have, each affidavit, each supporting affidavit for each warrant, is specific to each person. So we have a blanket affidavit, so it's going to be very difficult for them to actually convict, all of them. I mean, I imagine that there's one or two or three or four, bad players involved, but to detain 200, it was 239 people. I wrote it down.
But see, here's...
I said earlier. It was 239 originally people detained.
Right.
Of course, they're going to have, huge lawsuits coming up against them. They're going to lose all their money. I don't know why they keep. Why don't they just save face, and do something right? What I wanted to ask you, Mr. Gill, was what about their personal property? I have a problem with being charged with something, and then they're able to take your personal private property, like your motorcycle. Like, how do they get to impound everybody's 130 motorcycles and 91 other vehicles impounded? How do they get to do that? I mean, it's bad enough, of course, but how do they get to steal your private property? That's what I don't get.
There are actually a couple of ways that private property can be confiscated in the course of criminal conduct. One is can be confiscated as evidence.
Evidence, right.
If I walk into a convenience store with a handgun and hold up the clerk and I get caught coming out by a police officer, he's going to take my handgun from me as evidence, right, and book it in and hold it in the police property room and possibly use it against me at my trial. The other way evidence of personal property is taken from people in the state of Texas is we have what's called a forfeiture statute.
Forfeiture.
And when personal property is used in the commission of a crime or is acquired through criminal means, the state can step in and file a civil action and take that property from me through that means. And that has been done with some of the individuals involved. They have had forfeiture actions filed against them to take their motorcycles because the state is claiming that they were used in the course of a criminal
commission of a crime.
In the commission of a crime.
Yeah, and I imagine that must be in the dummy affidavit. They would have to include the idea that they have motorcycles.
It's just a separate set of affidavits for that.
There is a separate affidavit for the property?
Yes.
So you're saying that they have 130 separate affidavits for the motorcycles and then 91 separate affidavits for the other vehicles impounded?
I'm saying that if they have filed a forfeiture action against someone, and I was told that they filed 26 forfeiture actions, that there was a separate forfeiture petition filed with a separate affidavit filed.
So that would be 26. I wonder what happened to the other. I wonder what happened to the rest of them then. Or they're just using other means.
I don't know. I don't know how many are being held at this point, but I do know that there's good reason to believe that some of them might be held as evidence because they may have bullet holes or firearms with them.
Right.
So some of them may be held as evidence.
Right, but if they weren't put there by people, or the bullet holes were put there by firearms from police, law enforcement, it's going to be pretty hard to prove, unless the bullet is still in there and somebody can do forensics on it. I mean, I'm sure the state police have tried to step up and try to help out with the state forensics on it, but, they haven't released any of that evidence either, I suspect, right? What bullets were fired, how many bullets were fired by each officer, where they were fired, in the directions they were fired. They don't have any of that, do they?
That's correct.
Holy moly. So basically these guys, I'll just call them people, these people that were there, whether or not they did any crime or not, they're guilty or not guilty of any crime, their lives now are on hold for the next 2 years until they process this evidence. And it could be the fact that they just pulled into the parking lot to go have a sandwich.
Yeah, and it's going to ruin their life. They're going to lose their job. They're going to... they have to pay attorney's fees. They have to wear ankle bracelets. It's incredible. The only way they're going to get it back is suing in federal court. I have a question for Rodney Jackson. Rodney, could you, because you and I haven't talked about Twin Peaks much, although you and I have talked a lot about Sandra Bland's case. I wonder, Rodney, if you can give us your opinion as to the procedures that law enforcement used in this incident, Twin Peaks, that is. Where did they go wrong? Where did they go right? What do you think they should do now?
Well, we talk all the time, and my stance on law enforcement when you have these kind of problems is it appears to me that there is an agenda that we don't know about. So if you consider possible agendas, then you can kind of get to the bottom of the answer. It sounds to me when you talk about a lot of them are saddled with ankle bracelets and GPS units. It seems to me that's what they wanted. If you arrest all of these individuals, it gives you a chance to ID all of them versus not knowing who they are. Maybe that was their agenda, because there is no way that any law enforcement officer can testify under oath engaging in criminal activity. You arrived after the incident. So what are you going to testify to? What time did you arrive? Blah, blah, blah. Was that after or before the incident? After. So what did you see that would lead you to believe that this particular individual or this 96 or 100 individuals was involved in any criminal activity?
Right.
Right. I mean, they can't do it. So it seems to me like there's another agenda, and maybe it seems to me that the agenda is they wanted to know who these people were. They want to know where they're going to be going, and that they accomplished. If they were going after money, they got that. They were trying to go after property with asset forfeiture, they got that. So it seems to me that maybe you're looking in the wrong direction. Maybe it's not about the criminal act acts that may have happened. It's about what they want or wanted.
Right, but they also killed 9 people in the process of this act, right? So 9 people lost their lives. So does that, I mean, if there's no evidence that anybody did anything wrong, but then law enforcement actually, the rumor is law enforcement opened up on these people and nobody was brandishing a gun, nobody actually shot anyone, no one did anything, maybe there was an argument or a misunderstanding, but how do you then justify 9 people losing their life and then all this nonsense? That's the crazy part.
So let's say there's a possibility, because I don't know the facts. Let's say that the law enforcement officers are guilty of the deaths that occurred. If they understand that, and that's what they believe, what do you think they're going to do to construct a case against themselves? No,
they're not. They're going to hide everything.
They're going to construct a case against those that were there.
And they're not going to collect evidence. They're not going to produce evidence because everything points back to them.
But isn't that what they're doing?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. What Cal may not have shared with the audience or those of you that are on the panel tonight is I worked for 5 police agencies. In my very first police agency, I had the misfortune of having to deal with a police chief that was involved in organized crime. I went to every lawyer, every friend, every chief, every lieutenant from every other department, every captain, every assistant chief, begging for someone to listen to me. Nobody believed me. So one of the things I've learned about law enforcement is, and after working for 5 police jurisdictions, it's now easier for me to believe that police, they always say it's a few bad apples. I got news for you. We need to maybe reconsider that concept of a few bad apples. Maybe it's just a few good apples.
Right.
And if these officers realize, I mean, I've worn a badge since 1975 to 1996, and I know if I'm aiming at someone, whether I shot and killed someone. I'm not stupid. I mean, it's my gun. I mean, I'm the one that's looking down the barrel of that gun.
That's correct.
So we know if we killed somebody, and if we have to clean up our mess because we have families, we don't want to go to jail, we don't want to lose our pension, we don't want to lose our career, we don't want to be embarrassed, you can bet any bottom dollar that we're going to construct a case against anybody to keep us out of prison.
That's right.
Holy cow, that's too much. Okay, guys, I have a little bit of technical difficulties. I got a couple of callers on the line, and they're having a little bit of trouble getting in. And I spoke to the producer in the back. There was a little problem in startup, so what we're going to do is take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And I'd like you all to call me back.
So call
and
back.
don't forget about me. And you'll be in big trouble if you don't.
All right.
All right. No, I'm just teasing. Mr. Gill, I want you back if you can, if you have time, because I really would like to hear your opinion on the Sandra Bland case, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
Okay. Well, I can give you a little bit more time. That would be great.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're listening to Reach Out America Radio, World Integrity News Network, Imploding the Illusion. We have some great guests on tonight. So what I'd like everyone to do is literally hang up, take a 5-minute break, and call back.
All right. Thank you.
I'll talk to you in a few. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
World Integrity News Network.